I gotta make sure I'm in the frame, right? Hello, everyone. Let's do a refresh. And I got a lot to say today. I've got myself a whole list. I am prepared. Okay, I am in the frame. Good, good, good. Mute. Yes, we're going to talk about flow. But I wanted to get into a couple of things first, right at the beginning of this live stream. First of all, I am very aware of how you guys like or dislike the channel. You know, I think about it all the time. I mean, I can't even help but think about it because we do this every week. And I have done polls asking you, what do you like? What do you prefer? And I've also told myself, you know, okay, I'll do that, or I'll tell myself that will be done at this time. And I had this epiphany earlier this week that it's kind of funny that, let me get to the point. You guys tell me what you like, and honestly, I have not been listening like I should have. And that's my fault. That's my mistake. And that's why I'm talking about this epiphany that struck me. Because I do this channel, I talk about things that I feel like are important, and I kind of do them on my own time frame. I do them on my own schedule. I choose the topic. I'm not really opening it up to the community the way I should. And I hear a lot of YouTubers say, or at least I hear the rumor that YouTubers say, well, what do you want to hear, or what do you want to see? And I already know the answer because you've been telling me. I have just not been listening properly. So to boil it down to a nutshell, in a poll I did a few months ago, the bottom line is that everyone seemed to really like the edited content more than the live stream. And I can tell, based on the views of the videos, which are more popular. Also, edited content gets to the point, doesn't get off topic too badly, even though I do tend to wander. And it's a shorter video versus sitting in a talk for almost an hour in a live stream each Saturday. Now, when the live stream is uploaded, I don't have to edit or anything. It just, boom, it's on YouTube, which I love. It's one less thing for me to think about. We had our conversation, but for someone coming to the channel and they say, oh, here's one about cyanobacteria. Oh, that's an hour long. They're probably going to want to skip to something that's 2 to 5 minutes long instead. So my concern is that I'm actually basically chasing away viewers that would otherwise stick around for great content. And I realize that in these live chats, we talk about a lot of things, and I drop all kinds of nuggets of truth. And people that have been in the hobby a long time will hear the video or hear a presentation I do in person, and they'll think, well, I pretty much know it all, and then they'll hear something new from me, and they're really excited. And I always try to target everyone, new person all the way to experienced person, because there's always something to learn, and hopefully I'm providing some kind of beneficial information to everyone. But asking someone to sit down for an hour to capture a nugget that was 30 seconds long is a hard stretch. So this happened to me last night. I started thinking maybe what I should do is download the live stream after it's completed, put it in my editor, cut out all the stuff that doesn't matter, really clean it up and, put it on a diet, so to speak. Add extra footage, add extra documentation, include extra images, and then re-upload it as the official video. So basically what I would be doing is I would be sharing a stream, you'd be interacting with me, and then later on, that stream would vanish from the channel, and then an upload would appear that is better rounded and on topic. It sounds like more work to me rather than less, but at the same time, I already did a live stream about water changes, but there's no video about water changes on my channel. And for me to have a second video about it seemed kind of weird or redundant. What do you guys think? Well, give me your feedback. I would really like to hear that. And I'm not going to delete this live stream at the end. I mean, I'm going to leave it up, so if you're watching this after the stream's already over, I want to hear what you're thinking. But maybe that is the way to go, so that way everyone benefits. So that was the first thing I wanted to get into. I want to tell you that Aquashella is this special event that's happening in Chicago next month. It's on August 18th and 19th, and it is a freshwater, saltwater, and artist convention. And it's 2 days long. The people from Fritz are the ones that spearheaded this project because they felt like an event had to take place in Chicago. And I'll be there. There's going to be a number of YouTubers there. There's going to be a lot of artists there. I believe the art will be up for auction. So if you like aquatic art, or if you like frags, or if you like freshwater, this will be the place to be. And I'm going to be in Chicago for basically 3 days. And I'm actually looking to possibly film a tank on Friday evening. If you're available and you have something gorgeous and you feel like everyone should see it on my YouTube channel, please let me know in the comments. And then MACNA, which I talk about all the time, is going to happen on September 7th through 9th. And I've got an upcoming video about that one that will be very concise and to the point and tell you all the highlights of the event. And in case you're wondering, what is this thing, or you've been ignoring me for some time, it's time for you to listen because it's in less than 2 months. It's awesome. It's the 30th one. 30 years in a row this event has taken place. And I know I have helped hundreds. I'm going to say thousands, but I know I've helped hundreds choose to attend the event. And when they go there and I run into them, they said, I came here because you made me. I came here because you told me to. And you know what? Someone did that to me in 2002. They said, Mark, you got to go. And so I did. And I loved it. And I tell every hobbyist, you got to go. So please consider going to MACNA this year. It's in Las Vegas. And the price is going to be great. There will be, coupon codes. There's going to be a huge raffle every day. Well, the biggest raffle's on Sunday. And tons of education. Oh, speaking of education, I'm going to jump back again. Aquashella has something like, I don't know, 12 speakers. And there were so many great topics. I'm wondering if anyone's even going to go to the art part of it, or if they're all going to be listening to these speakers, because every single one of them sounded so interesting to me. And I'm not even speaking. So that's kind of exciting. Okay. Let's jump into the topic of flow, because we have not discussed that on this channel. And I'll start off by telling you that all my tanks have Vortec pumps. This is a Vortec pump. It's called a Quiet Drive. And this one is actually sold to one of my customers. So I'm going to open it up. Because I want to show you the part that goes in the tank. Here's the entire, if you've never seen a Vortec before, this is the packaging, and there's your quiet drive. There was some, things, the power supply, the motor that's on the outside of the tank. But this is what's inside your tank. It takes up so little space. That's why I love these. And I've been running Vortec pumps now for 10 years, longer. I used to have Tunzi pumps. I had Maxi Jets. I had all kinds of different things over the years. These came out, and as soon as they came out, I fell in love with them, and I've never gone back. I mean, these are what I want, and every tank has it. So my big reef has 2 MP60s and an MP40. The Anemone Cube has an MP40, which is this. And then the frag system has an MP10, which is a cute little one just because I had it. They come with a foam sponge guard that you can install around to keep things out of it, but you've got to take this off and clean it regularly. If you just have it like this in your tank, it'll work, and it'll still get algae on it, and you'll have to take it out to clean it. But this is all that's in the aquarium, and that's what I love. For a long time, there was a lot of debate that you need to be able to point the flow certain directions, but that's not the case with the Vortec pump. Water flows out the front, and it draws in from the side, and it creates an undertow and blows out. Awesome pump. And I want to talk about this one because I had it handy. Now, when it comes to putting flow in your aquarium, the question is, how much do you need? And can you recreate the ocean? You really cannot. The ocean will always supersede what we can do with our aquariums. But we've got a lot of techniques. So I made a whole list of the things that we use or employ. So powerheads, wave pumps, gyres, and I'm not talking about the brand, I'm talking about the circulation of water moving. Closed loop, chaotic, pulsing, random, accelerators, surge tanks. These are all methods that have been used for, I'd say, the last 20, 30 years. If you visit a public aquarium like the Georgia Aquarium, they have this huge, and there's also one, I just give me that as an example. I've been to many public aquariums, and many of them have this. They have this huge surge that will dump the water in, hundreds of gallons at a time, and it creates this giant wave on the top, and all the bubbles go in the water, and then it settles out, and it's clear water again, and you can see the reef. And what you're doing while you're seeing that, the tank is refilling and refilling and refilling until it gets so full it gets heavy and dumps again and throws in another wave. And it's one of the highlights of going to the Georgia Aquarium is standing in the rounded tank and watching the wave crash over and seeing the bubbles shoot across. It's really, really pretty. And it's a way of dumping a lot of water into a tank. That is typically considered either a dump or a surge tank. And that is a method of installing a large vessel of water above your aquarium that fills up with water and then dumps all at once and then refills, and this goes on forever. There are challenges to this. Number one, salt creep can become a problem for your lighting in your surrounding area of the aquarium. You have to have vertical space to put the surge tank up high. And you may have to deal with sound issues from listening to the way it works into the system. You may not even like all the bubbles shooting into your tank, and there are methods using electronic ball valves or gate valves that will open and close to limit how much water comes out to stop it before it starts sucking down air down the pipe. It's one thing I've kind of played with doing in my mind 1,000 times, but I probably will never ever do it. I just don't need that in my life. Now, Vortec pumps, gyre pumps, Jabo pumps, the wave pump from Apex. These are all the ones that are in my head right now. I know there's probably at least 15 more that you're using. And we connect them to the glass with various methods, typically magnets. But there are, some of the older school stuff like MaxiJets came with a suction cup. And suction cups are notorious for letting go. The suction cup does not hold up well in salt water. I don't even know if it holds up well in fresh water. But it doesn't do well in salt water. It lets go. The pump falls down and blows all your sand across the tank. So if you're using a pump that could possibly fall and get down into the sand bed, you should secure the power cord up high to something permanent. So that way that power head cannot, if it dangles loose, it's just floating on the water, but it does not collapse to the bottom. Very, very important. With the Vortec pump, this part is held to the glass with a magnet, the motor's on the outside, and then the cord goes up and you secure the cord there, which is another reason to protect the motor, which is the expensive part, from falling and possibly being damaged. Gyre pumps, you need to run the wire out of the tank, somewhere. You can secure it. It probably will not come loose. It's a pretty long magnet. The wave pump from Apex or Neptune Systems has a large magnet that holds it in place. But for some reason, if you don't have the cord where it is isolated, you might hear some vibration, which I thought was very strange, and I've had a lot of people tell me it's absolutely true. So, friends of mine said I had to actually move the cord a little bit, and all of a sudden the pump became quiet. I'm like, wow, that's surprising. When you're dealing with these different pumps in your tank, you've got to figure out where you're going to place them, what looks aesthetically pleasing, what is best for the corals and the anemones, and the other things you have in your tank. We want to make sure that we are putting enough movement of water through the tank, but we're not peeling the skin off the coral, we're not blowing things over. You want good, steady flow, but okay, I don't want to say steady because I like chaotic way more. I like water that mixes up, that's constantly changing. But a gyre would be making water move basically in a huge circle or in a huge circle like this, moving across the front and it comes across the back. And you can set up pumps to do that. For example, the actual gyre pump from IceCap can be run horizontally or it can be run vertically. And you can have it blow this way or you can have it blow that direction. I believe you can even have one go one direction and one go the other direction, possibly. That I'm not positive of. That I haven't followed it closely enough. But when you're setting up your flow in the tank, we want to make sure that we're not disturbing the sand too much, unless you have a bare bottom tank, which means no sand, and then you can do whatever you want. And some hobbyists really like that. They want to have so much flow, and they don't want to think about the sand bed being an issue, so they just remove it. I love sand, so I'm more aware of where to put my power heads. And typically, all my my pumps are halfway up the tank or even slightly higher. That seems to work out really well for me. If you have limited water movement at the top of the tank, you should have a power head pointing upward or pointing at an angle upward, so that way it is creating ripples. We want to really have a good, strong, rippling surface in a saltwater tank because it adds to oxygenation. It's letting CO2 to get out. It lets the fresh air get in. We definitely want to have good, strong current. And from time to time on Instagram or on Facebook, I share pictures of the surface of my tank to remind you that's the way it's supposed to be. If you bend down and look up at the surface of your tank and you see an oil slick on the top and the water's really still, it's not a good setup, and you definitely want to increase the surface agitation. So don't forget about that. The other thing that I wanted to emphasize, no matter what you're using, because like for example, let's say you're using the wave pump or you're using the Vortec, they have different stages or different cycles, different programs is the best word, for increased flow and less flow. You can be in lagoon mode, you can be in reef crest mode, you can be in nutrient export mode. These are all the modes that are in the reef, in the Vortec driver. But you know, lots of company. Oh, and then wave. I want to talk about that because when you are creating or generating a wave in your aquarium where the coral is doing this, what's happening is the pump, let me do this. You've got this propeller in here, and what's doing is it's spinning and then stops and then spins and stops and spins and stops and spins and stops. And that vroom, 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 that can be a sound that you don't appreciate. So we want to consider what's best for you. Do you want the wave action and you're willing to tolerate the sound that is going to come associated with that? And there are different pumps out there. Some people prefer to have their pumps on a timer where one pump runs for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and the other one is off. Switches off, and the other one comes on for 5, 10, or 30 minutes. And they cycle back and forth. And that way they're creating a little bit more random flow. If your tank is small and you don't have a lot of room because of the rock work that's in there, you can also take the nozzles where the water's coming into the tank, or your power head, for example, a MaxiJet or something like that. And if this was the front of the tank, you can, instead of pointing the power head this direction, we're going to point it this way so it bounces off the glass and comes back into the reef, and do the other one and bounce it off the glass back. That's totally fine. It's something I used to do in my 29-gallon many years ago. I had 4 MaxiJets in a 29-gallon, and they were the MaxiJet 1200s. So they were, you know, a pump that was supposed to move 295 gallons an hour. And I even took one pump and I turned it upside down so that the motor was sitting on the sand and the nozzle was up higher, blowing water behind the rock work, and then the strainer was pointing straight up. But I shoved it in the back of the tank to make water move this way because I had dead spots. And that's what we don't want. You don't want to have dead areas in your tank. You want to have a lot of good flow throughout the system. Quick side tip for those of you who are experienced and wish you had a nugget of truth. One of my tricks of cleaning a reef tank is to take a power head, like a MaxiJet, plug it into an extension cord, get up on my walkboard, or in your case on a step ladder or a stool of some kind, and point the power head at the rockwork and just blow it all off from every angle. Just get all the detritus out of there and let your system trap it with filter socks or with your protein skimmer. Maybe you're a canister filter person, but to at least do this on occasion would be really wise because it allows your rock to breathe. And there's bacteria in your rock that's working on denitrification. You've got all kinds of little benthic critters in there. You've got pods in there. And so to clean off the rock is a good move, and it helps reduce some of the nutrients in the system. So that is my trick, which is, I feel, far easier than to sit there with a turkey baster and blow things off, where you have to pump the turkey baster over and over and over. Now, no matter what pump you use, and I mentioned closed loops, I didn't go into that, so let me explain that really quick, and then I'll go to this next point. A closed loop pump would be a hole going out of the tank into a pump and back into a hole, and no air gets into the plumbing at all. It's under the surface of the water. Basically, a person would have an aquarium, and they drill a hole down low on both sides or on the back, and they suck water out one and they blow water in. Or maybe just a hole going out and then the water comes through the top and under submersed. So it's moving water, but you don't have any air in the system, so you don't blow any air bubbles out. That closed loop system is what we used to use when you tried to hide all these power heads, but they are making them smaller and sleeker and more invisible. Ultimately, we all would love to have invisible flow, with crystal clear pumps that are made of acrylic where you don't see anything. That would be awesome. But you know, we still have to put something in the tank. So strategically hiding them could be beneficial, but if they're just blowing right into rock, then your corals are not going to benefit. So we have to have some things up high or down low or across the back or across the front or dumping in or flowing. You know, these are all the things we do to create an environment of flow. And what you can do to see the flow in your tank is pour a chemical in there. For example, Purple Up, or Reef Booster, which is the food that Prodibio uses, or Phosphate RX, which is what I tell everyone to use to remove phosphate from the water, or simply Flake Food. Just put it in the tank and watch where it blows around. And if you just see it blow really hard in one spot and kind of settle in another, that tells you have a spot that's going to be pretty much like a dead zone. And that could also be the area where you'll typically see cyano and other types of algae starting to amass. Now, when you have an area of really high flow, you'll possibly see hair algae growing there. It seems to love flow. So you'll have to clean off algae, and that leads to my next point, that always keep things clean. Anything that you can take out of the tank and take to the sink and clean is great. And that even includes the lock line, this stuff right here. You know, if you've got one of these in your tank and it's pushing water out, you can unscrew it because it's threaded, remove it from the plumbing, take it into the sink, you know, soak it in some vinegar, scrub it clean with a toothbrush, you know, clean it with a pipe cleaner inside, and then bring it back to the tank and reinstall it. And that already has become algae-free. And you want to do that with everything in your tank. You don't want to continue, you know, you don't want to have like a really clean power head and everything else is just corroded, and cleaning magnets that are covered in algae and power heads that are covered in algae. I mean, let's try to remove anything you can to clean it. That way you don't release anything back into the tank while you're cleaning it off. All right, I am going to talk about all this equipment. We want to make sure that it is running properly. And if anything isn't working right, fix it now. I recently had to tank sit for someone, and he said, "Can you come 2 times a day?" And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because my light is broken. You have to actually turn it on, and you have to turn it off every day." And so something like that, you want to get it repaired. If you have a power head in your tank that's failed or is failing, you need to either clean it, repair it, clean it and reinstall it, or if it's damaged, you need to replace it. And don't just let it wait. Don't just say, "I'll get to it later." Hit pause on this video, go to Amazon and order the next one, or go to your local fish store and go buy one right now and put it in your tank, and then figure out what's wrong with the one that doesn't work. Because your livestock's relying on you to keep them healthy and happy. And if you are saying, "Yeah, I notice it's not working right," and then you want to go on vacation, or something comes up that's big in your life, like your job has some huge task that you have to deal with for the next week, and you can't think about the aquarium. In the meantime, your aquarium just starts going to crap, and we don't want that to happen. So have backups of your equipment that you can swap out. So you can remove the dirty one and clean it while the other one's in the tank running it. And that's what I do. All of my Vortec pumps have an extra one of these, so I can have one clean, and I can actually put one in the tank and take the dirty one out and soak it in vinegar for a day or two. And then I take it apart and clean it really well, and I set it aside, and then I'll put it in rotation and take the next dirty one out. And so I work through all of mine to clean them on a regular basis. This is another type of flow that I use in my reef tank. This is called a flow accelerator. And I like this one because inside of the, let's see, this one's closed, but I can open it. Inside of the nozzle, there's a very small hole right here. Let's see if you can see. Hopefully you can. And on the side are vents. So as water is shooting through that tiny hole and out this cone, it's drawing water in, so it accelerates the amount of water. So if you had 1,000 gallons an hour coming through this nozzle, when it hits here, it's going to increase it to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 gallons an hour. Also, there are little fins inside the cone, and those fins are able to turn the water. So it's kind of a cool cavitation thing. And the reason I like this one is because it comes with all 3 sizes of the threads. So you can, let's see, what does it say? I'm trying to remember. Well, it looks like 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, and 1 inch, and all in one package. So if you bought this, and I sell them on my website. If you bought this and you're running it on 3/4 inch plumbing now, and later on you're going to upgrade, it'll fit into 1 inch because it comes with a 1 inch fitting. So that's pretty awesome. Now, finally, to keep flow in your tank, you need backup power. When things go wrong and the system loses electricity, you need your power heads to run. And not all battery backups are made equal. I had a customer that contacted me, or they just bought it from my website. They ordered the Ice Cap battery backup that's made for the Vortec pump. And since then, Ecotech has their own battery backup. Ice Cap has made their own battery backup for their line of pumps. Anyway, the point was the customer ordered this and found out it did not connect to their Jabo or their gyre or whatever it is they had. And so then they had to ship back this very heavy battery backup. So make sure that you're getting the battery that works with your equipment. If you are not buying the aquarium product, the series specific item, and you're just going to use a UPS like people used to plug their, that people plug their computers into, or maybe they plug their televisions into, because everyone wants to protect their electronics these days. Those UPSs have a limited lifespan. They can only run for a fixed amount of minutes or possibly hours. It depends on how much power you're pulling out of it is how long it'll last. If you were to plug in a air pump with an air stone in your aquarium into a battery backup, it could run for a day or two because it's a very small pump pulling 2-3 watts. If you're plugging in a pump that pulls 30 watts, 50 watts, 150 watts, or higher, the battery backup is going to drain down much more quickly. And so you want to have something in place that will keep your tank running in the event of a power outage. And purchasing pumps that work with a battery backup is ideal because you don't have to be there. Power goes out, tank just keeps running. You come home later from a movie, you never even knew there was a problem because it's all taken care of, and the power is restored and everything's great, and you didn't have 2 or 3 hours of dead still water in your aquarium. So if you're looking to buy things, find out what the options are, the accessories are to purchase to make your tank more bulletproof. All right. Big Salty asks the question, what's the best compromise for a mixed reef? I know that SPS need tons of flow and LPS not so much. I've got 2 gyres, and during the day they get pretty wild, but calm down at night, and so far everything looks good. Okay, so usually we put our SPS corals up high, and we put our LPS corals down low. So you can have a lot of flow going across the top of the tank, and the LPS will get less flow. They kind of get the return, the water going back to the pumps. And that way you're not blowing the tissue off of your LPS corals because they're a bigger, heavier, meatier coral, where an SPS coral is a hard stick with a thin skin, and it grows relatively quickly. So that is the trick. My tank is a mixed reef. I've got LPS on one end, I've got a bunch of SPS, I've got the huge anemone, I've got a gorgonian in there, I've got acans in there, chalices. I have a huge mixed reef. And I have all my flow basically in the middle of the tank, plus of course my 2 returns that are going through these flow accelerators. And my tank has been running that way since 2010, and it's worked really well. I don't have corals that are being stripped of their tissue. I don't mess with it, I don't change it, I plug it in and I'm happy, and I'm not constantly tinkering with the flow rate. I also don't slow the flow rate intentionally at night, or have it, I've done some coding in EcoSmart Live. EcoSmart Live is the cloud-based software that communicates with the Vortec pumps, and they offer you all these options. And so you can say, I want it to be lagoon mode for 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., and then I want it to ramp up, and then I want it to be really high, and you can do all that. And I have kind of done that, but then I never touched it again. I don't even think about it. So to me, they're just on. But in reality, they actually are going up and they're slowing down. The only thing that I do with my pumps is I shut off my return pump at night when I feed the tank because I want the food to stay in the display tank. And all the other pumps are still moving the water around. That way, whatever I drop in the tank blows everywhere, and the fish chase it, and the corals capture some of it. So that is my method. But I'm not like telling you, please turn down your flow at night, and please turn it up in the daytime. Find something that you like, something you want to live with, something that you can tolerate the sound of. My tank is actually really quiet. The only thing I'm hearing right now at this point is the water pouring through the teeth into the overflow box. Everything else is quiet. And I mentioned this in a stream not too long ago. It's kind of ironic because I used to deal with, oh, I hear the skimmer. Oh, I hear the return pump's cooling fan blowing. I've made everything so quiet, I'm actually complaining about the water going through the teeth into the overflow box now. Not the water draining into the sump. Not the skimmer's pumps and the venturi sucking in air. Not the vortex. The vortex were advertised as quiet pumps. And then I guess 3-4 years ago, they reinvented the driver to make them where they're dead silent, where you basically have to put your ear against it to hear it. And I'm actually looking at the propeller to see if it's spinning. I really don't hear it. And I know there are people out there that are going to say, that's not true, they're the loudest thing, I hated them. Again, if you were in wave mode or pulse mode, where it's zoom, 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 you're going to hear it. Just like if you did it with, let's say you sat in a room and the radio was on and you're focused on reading an article and you don't really notice the music. But if someone sat there with the volume and went, loud, 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 you would sit there and say, could you knock that off? I'm trying to read this. And that's what a pulsing pump can do. And so newer technology can do pulsing more quietly, and the vortex have been updated. And everyone that has quiet drives, I don't see people complaining about them. Like in the old days, people complained, but everyone was doing wave mode because they wanted their corals to do this in the tank all day long, where I never wanted that. I want the corals to just kind of be there. I wasn't trying to do that. Bart Newell asks, I just got here, is there a good cheap circulation pump that offers some controllability, flow pattern, and strength? There's actually quite a few. And I would say the cheapest is going to be finding some kind of a Jabo pump that's connected to a driver. Max Spec may have one. The current E-loop system seemed quite affordable to me. I don't know how far cheap is for you. And speaking of money and equipment, I tend to buy expensive stuff, but it lasts me forever. The pendants that my lights are in have been hanging over my tank for, I'd say, 2006. 12 years, I've been using the same pendants. I take them down every few months and clean them really well and put them back up. I take good care of them. My Vortec pumps, the original MP60s, I got them in 2010. It's 2018, I'm still using them. I've had to replace the wet side a couple of times, but that's wear and tear. I'm still running the same Apex controller that I've had for 6, 7, 8 years. I spend money on high-end stuff, so I don't have to think about it anymore. So the reason I'm saying this is sometimes someone will listen and say, oh, you're being arrogant. No, I'm saying I spent more on something because I felt it would last longer, it had a better warranty, or it had better customer support, and I felt that was important to me. And recently I was on Reef Dude's channel, which is a guy up in Canada. His name is Devin, and I met him when I was in Vegas last month, or 2 months ago. And I was looking at his setup, and he has all the high-end gear, and it just kind of made my heart skip a beat. I love seeing setups with really nice gear. And I guess it's sort of like you guys, you drive one car, but you love seeing those really high-end cars. You know, you may never own one, but you sure like them. In this hobby, you can really spend a lot of money on equipment. You can go crazy. You can say, well, I got a light for $200 off eBay or $100 off of eBay, where someone else will say, I bought this for $850 and I love it. So there's a market for everyone, and I just prefer the stuff that's awesome. Now, that is pretty much everything I want to talk about when it came to flow. If you have some questions, feel free to type them in. Matt just asked me, how's my Walt Disney acro doing? It's doing just fine. It was 2 pieces, and it has become 1 piece now with 3 branches coming off, which is nice. And I don't really get very many pictures of it because it's still about this big. And I'll see if I can get a photograph and maybe stick it on the community tab here on YouTube. Or it'll show up on my Instagram. So Instagram.com/melevsreef. Also, I share things almost daily on Facebook, on Facebook.com/melevsreef. So you can go there and follow me there. Now, I wanted to talk about another YouTube channel that has, I don't even know how much, 100 times more subscribers than I do. But Joey from King of DIY, he is a fish keeper, has been doing it for a very long time. And he has something like, I don't know, 700,000 subscribers, and he releases a video, and it seems like 1 million people watch it. I mean, he's doing great. And unfortunately, he recently had 2 major setbacks happen back to back in like the same week. And I was watching the updates, and I feel really bad for him. And I even sent him a couple of messages. He hasn't even replied. I'm sure he is in a dark place right now. But while he was at Reefapalooza speaking and talking about, the things he loves most, a hose had broken and shot out 1,000 gallons of water out of his 2,000-gallon system and flooded the fish room about 3 to 6 inches deep. And of course, all the filtration went off to that, which when all that water got into the room, other electrical items apparently were submersed in all that water, which killed all the power to the building, to all of his aquariums, because it's a fish gallery. So King of DIY is a channel if you want to check it out. My heart's going out to you, Joey. I feel like your passion. I mean, you've talked to me in the past, and I appreciate that, and I would love to have a channel as popular as yours. But in the meantime, the reason I'm telling this to you guys, everything you plan for with your aquarium, you should plan with redundancy. And I'm not even saying Joey should have done this or Joey should have done that, because he knows what he has to do. He'll find every flaw and he'll fix them all, and his tanks will be better than before. But here is the next thing. So the hose popped off. That's a bad thing. The next thing that happened with the power outage and then getting the room dried out and drying out the electrical, replacing the power cords, resetting the breakers, whatever it took, there's a huge heat front that has been taking over in Canada where he lives, and because of all the damage that had happened, it destroyed his AC system for that fish room. And with it being 100 degrees outside, his fish room temperature was rising. So he has mostly fresh water. And he said the solution to cooling these tanks down, besides making a whole bunch of ice and floating it, or freezing bottles and sticking frozen bottles in your aquariums, was to do water changes. And I thought, hey, that's kind of brilliant, So he's doing a lot of these fresh water. I guess you can just, I don't know anything about fresh water, but apparently you can just change the water. And it's not like us where we have to mix with salt, make sure it's perfect, and all this stuff. He could just change it. And he changed all this water through all these tanks, and he basically said it was a round robin where he changed water in the first tank, then he went to the second one, then he went to the third, and he lowered the temperature. And by the time he got to the last tank, the first tank was hot again. And so he'd have to go back and change water and change water. And he was doing this systematically in very difficult circumstances. And his well ran dry to where he ran out of water. How do you plan for that? How would you even know that you're going to run out of water? He said he pretty much changed, I think he said 2,000 gallons of water, and then his well was dry. And he had no more water. He couldn't do anything to cool the tanks anymore. And bottom line is, he only lost a couple of fish as of that last video. And he did everything he could to keep them alive. He brought in extra AC units into the room trying to cool it. He did these water changes. He did ice. He did everything. And he lost a couple of things here and a couple, but 99% of his stuff lived because of his extraordinary effort to keep everything alive. My only suggestion, if I were to make one, is that instead of having just one AC unit for that fish room, I would have 2. Redundancy. And so, in the case of your tanks, is your battery backup sufficient? Do you need a generator? If your generator conks out, do you have the money to go buy another generator right now, rush home and hook it up? Are you planning ahead that extra step? Because when you lose your reef, it's really disheartening. You spent years growing it, and to watch it just melt down in a matter of hours would be heartbreaking. And so I'm telling you these stories to help you really reevaluate, are you really prepared for a disaster? And I bet there are a bunch of videos on YouTube about what to do to prepare for a disaster. It's one of the talks I give. And I would just recommend that you really look at your tank today and think about it for 10 minutes or so. What if this happened? What if that happened? What if Murphy strikes? How would I handle it? What can I do to salvage this? What can I do to keep my livestock safe? That's my topic. I want you to give that some thought. I feel it's really important. And if you want to share in the comments what you've done, someone else could benefit from your advice. So Don't hold back. If you say, well, I use a power inverter with my car battery and I run 16 air pumps to keep everything circulating, do it. Tell us that. If you decided to spend $8,000 for a whole house generator, post it. Post a link to where you bought it. Let's help each other protect our tanks, because we're not individuals in this hobby. I know we tend to be, and we like things our way, but we're also sharing information with each other all the time, so that way our aquariums can be even better than what they were. Lastly, my final topic is really quick. I went to see Tammy's 800-gallon reef a few days ago. I told you guys I was going to film it, and I did. And I have so much footage, and it's going to be kind of a wonky edit. I hope it comes out as cleanly as I want, but I had this. One of the reasons I hadn't filmed her tank for so long was because I wanted to have double microphones for the interview, and I bought stuff and I hooked it all up and it didn't work, and I messed with it, and I thought I finally had it figured out, and then I went over there and it didn't work. So we struggled. They run a bar. They have live bands all the time. They had a lot of audio equipment. And Eric ran up to get more microphones and more wires and more connections. And we did everything we could. And I'll edit it. It may look a little goofy, but the tank's gorgeous. I got there at 8 o'clock at night and I left at 6 well, I got home at 6 in the morning. We filmed basically all night long. So no, it will not be a 7-hour video, but it'll be a really good video. It's going to be a fantastic update. You'll be shocked to find out what she's using for additives, and you will be stunned at what her reef looks like based on the parameters that she is describing to me. So I think you will really enjoy that video. And that is one of the things that leads me back to the first topic that I mentioned, that I have been listening to you, and I know you guys want to see more tank updates, you want to see more reefs, and that's where I was saying I do know what you guys want. I just need to be better about fulfilling that demand. And when you say, hey, we want an update about Tammy's tank, I should get on it quicker. And so I'm trying to be more aware of that, and I'm trying to be better about that so that this channel will be something you really enjoy even more. Now, today is saltwater, sorry, I can't even say it, I'm so tired. Today is water test Saturday. You need to test the water in your tank. I tested mine last night at midnight, which was technically Saturday. My alkalinity is a little bit low, so I'm going to make some adjustments with my calcium reactor and fill it up and tweak it a little bit, because I don't like it down to 8. I like it more around 10 DKH. And my phosphates were 0.1. My nitrates are still crazy high. But as of yesterday, I have hooked up a dosing pump to a bottle of vodka to dose vodka every day. There will be no live stream next Saturday because I am going to be out of state. So find something else to watch. Go back to my channel and find something you haven't seen yet. There won't be a live stream that time. I hope to get one more video out this week before I leave town, and I'll be gone. So the tank will be on autopilot. There will be a tank sitter, and hopefully everything will go well. And when I come home, I'll be refreshed and happy, and to see a beautiful reef. And I'll be back with you guys in 2 Saturdays for another live stream. So, YouTube Reefer asks, what's vodka dosing for? Vodka dosing is what I use to lower nitrate. And I did it many years ago, and then I switched to biopellets and did that for several years. And then I tried something over the last 6 or 8 months, which was a brick that you put in your sump, and that didn't work. It didn't play out. And so I finally had to just say, forget it, I'm going to go back to vodka dosing. And so that is what's going to happen. I know. That's the other thing. You guys have said repeatedly for months and months, I want to see the calcium reactor video. And I am definitely doing it. I just don't think it's going to happen before I leave town, which means it will be the one as soon as I come back, because I'm ordering the stuff. I ordered the stuff, I'm waiting for it to arrive, and I need time to sit down and film, because it's not going to be a stream, it's going to be an edited video. And that will be a really good, all-encompassing video that will explain them, and explain what they cost, and explain why I like them over dosing, and why those with bigger tanks in the past only use them, and how some these days are starting to embrace them again. Dosing has really become the norm, which originally it was not. It was not the norm. The norm was to have a calcium reactor or to top off with kalkwasser. And then people started making their own solution and dosing it by pouring it in the tank or using a dosing meter, some kind of like the dose from Neptune Systems, or these 4-head dosers and 6-head and 8-head dosers. There's all these dosers out there on the market. And you're constantly having to mix up a batch of solution to make sure the dosing pump is trickling in. And I find the calcium reactor is far easier to run and far more stable. And it costs more, but I love it. And that's why I'm setting up another one on my frag tank, because I'm going to stop doing the dosing. Michael Bowling asks, what kind of flow do you need for a quarantine tank? Not very much. Depends on the size of the quarantine tank, but let's say you've got a 29-gallon or you've got a 20-gallon, or maybe you've gone as much as a 55-gallon. You could probably put a couple of powerheads in there, a couple of maxi jets. It also depends what you're putting in quarantine. Are you quarantining corals, or are you quarantining fish? If it's fish, you just need some surface agitation and you need some flow because the fish need oxygen. If it's corals, you may need something a little bit more high-end. You might have some used gear you're not using in your tank anymore. You can just put it in the quarantine tank and use there to move the water around so that the corals will be healthy until they're ready to go into the reef tank itself. Big Salty says, considering purchasing a par meter, I'm leaning toward the Senai reef monitor, but I already have an Apex. Is it worth it to pay $400 for a meter by itself, or the redundancy of having a secondary monitor? I actually own a couple of par meters, and I used to use them a lot, and now I barely pull them out of the box. I don't know. I've gotten lackadaisical about that because my lights, I don't change them constantly. I install something and I use it forever. But having a meter that you can move from room to room and putting the par sensor here, here, and here is really nice versus the Senai, as far as I know, you hang it in the water and it's kind of measuring something from wherever the corner of the tank is sitting in. The Apex, I believe, has a par meter that mounts to a rock that you can connect to it, and you can place it here and here, and it'll measure over time and give you some data that way. I've always used the handheld meters, and I would go from this tank to that tank. I tried under LEDs, I tried under metal halides, I tried under T5s, I tried it under power compacts, I've tried it under refugium bulbs. I just wanted to see what things were measuring. This t-shirt came from Marine Depot, and I love it too. That's why I put it on for you guys today. It cracks me up. I do have basically 3 friends. And all of you. Oh, so this was cool. I'm always watching numbers. Numbers are a big thing for me. I don't know why, but I'm like the channel. It's coming up on 40,000 subscribers. Is there anything special you want for the 40,000 subscribers benchmark? Because I'd like to do something special. I don't know what. So if you have some ideas, please tell me. And this is huge. 2 days ago, I looked at my YouTube channel and I finally got to see one of my videos has 1 million views. 1 million! It did it, and it did it organically. It took forever. It took 3 years. But the video I shared with the tube, with the clownfish going down to the anemone, that one has crossed the 1 million threshold. And I know you guys are like, so what? But it was a big deal to me. In this world where people share a little clip about their dog jumping off the back of a goat, and it gets 40 million views. For me to have a video on YouTube that has 1 million views is exciting. And I was like, wow, I did it. I have a video that did that. So that was pretty cool. Tammy's video that I did 3 years ago about her 800-gallon reef, literally that night when we were filming, crossed 200,000 views. So we all did a shot. Because you always need a reason to drink. And we did that, and we celebrated. And we had pizza, and we filmed all night. And I got to play the Oculus. I don't know if you guys are gamers, but the Oculus was really cool. I'm not going to buy one, but I might go visit them and play theirs from time to time. Let's see. Sharkman asks, any recommendations on battery backups? You need to know what equipment you have, what you're wanting to plug into, and see if they already make a battery for your pump, or if you're just going to use a computer UPS. And then the bigger the UPS, the better. The other choice is to get a series of deep cycle batteries, like the batteries they put on a boat, and you put 2 or 3 of them, you wire them up correctly, and you hook them up to a power inverter, and then the power inverter sends the power to the designated pump you're trying to run. might be your return pump is all you need to keep all the water moving. It's moving slower, but at least water is moving. And then, of course, you have to have a trickle charger to replenish those deep cycle batteries. And then you have to have somewhere to put them, and you have to deal with looking at them. So these are things you want to consider. Anything that I like, you'll see in my videos, I have the Ecotech battery backups, and I have 4 of them, and they're here and there and there and there. They're all mounted everywhere, and they keep everything running. And I mentioned earlier, make sure everything's working. One of mine is not working. I've done the test. I've unplugged the power to a pump, and the battery didn't come on. So I've got to remove that battery, probably buy a new one, reinstall it, get it back on the cabinet, reconnect the wires, and verify it works before I go out of town. Because you know, you don't want anything broken when you're leaving town. Make sure everything's working right. Someone's suggesting I give away a sump. All right, guys. We're coming up on an hour. I'm going to stop the live stream. I'm not editing this one. This was just a good topic, and I hope that I stayed on topic enough that you didn't feel like it was a waste of your time. And again, no live stream in 2 weeks. Go test your water. Post your results on Instagram. I posted mine last night. I want to see yours. Do hashtag water testing, hashtag post your results at melevsreef. Make sure your posts are public, not set to private. You know, if your channel is private, then you're not really being social. So be social. And if you have any questions, you can always find me on Facebook at melevsreef. Real easy. People contact me there all the time. I answer questions. I try to help you, or they just want to show me pictures of their tank. And one more reminder, if you're in the Chicago area and you got a beautiful reef tank, you want me to film it, please let me know. Contact me. If you can't figure out a way to reach out to me, you can always use the Contact Us form on melevsreef.com. By the way, anything you buy from that channel helps keep me fed and keeps Spock fed. So, you know, if you can go to melevsreef.com and buy something, I'd appreciate it. Guys, have a great week, and I will talk to you real soon.